Warm nights pressed heavy on the hills of Puerto Rico when the first stories began. Chickens lay still in their coops, goats collapsed beside the fence, eyes open to the moon as if they had been startled and then simply stopped. There were no torn throats, no scattered feathers, no frantic hoof prints gouged into the dirt. Just 2 small punctures near the neck, clean and deliberate, and a quiet that seemed to sink into the ground. Neighbours leaned over wires and wooden posts, trading the same uneasy sentence in low voices. All the blood was gone. People closed their doors early after that. Radios crackled to life with late-night callers, each swearing they had seen something slip between the trees, too fast for a dog, too upright for a man, eyes like coals smouldering under wet leaves. By the end of that summer, the rumour had a name, simple as a headline and sharp as a hook. El Chupacabra, the goat sucker. It travelled by ferry and freighter, crossed borders in the back of pickup trucks and in the margins of newspapers, showed up in the mouths of ranchers who did not know one another and yet told the same shape of story. In Mexico, the fields were wide and dusty, and the stars felt nearer. In Texas, the pens were made of pipe and welded wire, and floodlights stayed on all night. The animals kept dying anyway, as if a pattern had been traced over the map, and the killings were just ink filling the line. Science offered explanations that fit inside lab rooms. Diseased dogs, coyotes ravaged by mange, a chain of coincidences tightened by fear. But the details were stubborn. Carcasses were found without blood, and yet there were no pools in the dirt, no smear trails, no scent for a hound to follow. The wounds were too precise, too neat. In some places, farmers swore the grass around the bodies was pressed flat in a perfect circle, as if a weightless thing had hovered there and the earth had bowed to its passing. Skeptics shook their heads. Believers shut their gates and hung mirrors and bright tins to catch whatever light the night would lend them. Descriptions multiplied like stray dogs. One man saw a small grey figure slipping upright along a ditch, back bristling with short spines that rose and fell as it breathed. A woman swore she watched a naked animal, long-legged and hairless, scramble over a wall and turn to look at her with round red eyes that did not blink. A teenager pointed to a clearing where he heard a hum, deep and steady, the kind of sound that makes your ribs vibrate. When he stepped forward, the hum stopped, and the clearing felt emptier than before, as if something had been there and taken all the air with it when it left. Reporters arrived with plastic cases and bright microphones. They left with fogged lenses and quotes that did not agree. A local official held up a map dotted with pins and talked about hysteria. A veterinarian spoke softly about hemorrhage and shock, then admitted he had never seen a body drained so cleanly. An old man told the only story that made sense to him. In the mountains, hunger learns tricks, and the oldest trick is patience. Whatever walked those nights was patient. Soon the legend was no longer only about goats. It was about the thin line where fences meet brush, about the way a barn creaks after midnight, about the space between a flashlight beam and the edge of a mesquite's shadow. It was about being watched by something that could wait longer than you could stay awake. People began to measure time differently, before the hum, after the hum. Dogs went quiet when they should have barked. On some mornings the sun came up, and the world felt normal again, and on other mornings the light revealed one more body laid out neatly as a warning nobody could read. The name kept moving. It showed up on t-shirts and in jokes, then slipped out of the punchline and back into the dark where it liked to live. In Chile, a shepherd counted heads at dawn with his thumb, twice, then a third time, as if numbers could be forced to change by will. In Arizona, a boy listening from his bedroom swore he heard a sound like an electric transformer humming far away, steady as a heartbeat, and then felt it under his ribs, closer, closer, until the sound was the only thing in the room, and then nothing at all. He didn't sleep that night. He kept the hall light on and watched the bottom of his door. There were nights when nothing happened, and those nights worked on people more than the others. Waiting is a kind of weather. It settles over a place and makes the usual things seem strange. A swinging gate becomes a signal. A loose panel becomes a message. A shadow at the corner of the eye becomes an event. Somewhere in that weather, the legend of the Chupacabra found its shape. Not just a creature, but a habit of looking, a habit of holding your breath to hear whether the world has fallen too quiet. And once you learn to listen for that silence, it follows you into every pasture and past every fence, across bridges and borderlines, through new towns that will later say they always knew the story. They did not. The story knew them. It has a way of arriving first and waiting, the way it waits at the edge of a field, the way it waits beside a coop with its bright hinge and its simple latch. By the time autumn cooled the island and the newspapers chose other front pages, nothing essential had changed. The name remained. The deaths came in flurries, and then not at all, and then again like hard weather. People learned to speak softly about the thing and to sleep more lightly. And if anyone asked when it began, they pointed to a year that grows farther away each season, though the feeling does not. It lives under a thin layer of ordinary time, the kind that cracks at night. When it does, the ground gives up its heat and the air hums, and whatever is out there steps forward without hurry. It has all night. It has the next night too. The creature defies description, yet every story builds another piece of its shape. Those who have seen it up close say it is smaller than a man but heavier than it should be, as if its bones were metal and its flesh stretched too tight to hold what lives inside. Its skin carries no hair, only a grey-green sheen like something that has never known sunlight. Along its spine rise narrow ridges that lift and fall in rhythm with its breathing, giving the impression of a lung that runs the entire length of its body. When it moves, those ridges ripple like waves travelling through liquid muscle. The light of a flashlight or the brief glare of a lantern makes the surface glimmer faintly, as though it were covered in thin oil. It leaves no prints that last until morning. Its eyes are not eyes in the way we know them. They do not reflect light. They absorb it, glowing only because everything else dims. People say they shine red, but witnesses who have been closer insist it is not colour at all. It is heat, visible thought, attention made visible. When those eyes fix on a thing, it forgets how to move. Animals stop in mid-step, jaws slack, breathing shallow, as if the air has turned to glass around them. In that stillness, the creature feeds. No growl, no snarl, only a faint hiss of air drawn through narrow teeth. The marks it leaves are perfect, a surgeon's puncture, small and symmetrical, always at the same place along the neck or behind the jaw. The blood is gone, the body intact. It is as though the creature takes the pulse itself, the rhythm of life, rather than the fluid that carries it. People who have survived an encounter describe another thing, a vibration in the air, too low to be called a sound, a pressure that grows behind the eyes and inside the chest. It comes seconds before the creature appears. Those who have felt it say it blurs thought and dream together, like standing too close to a storm. It is not a warning. It is the attack itself, a soft weapon that unravels the mind before the body can react. The hum fades only after the feeding ends. The next memory is usually of dawn and the taste of metal in the mouth. In some places, the Chupacabra is said to walk on two legs, moving with an uneven, almost mechanical grace. In others, it crawls on all fours like a lizard whose limbs bend the wrong way. The differences may be mistakes, or perhaps the creature is more than one thing, an idea with many bodies. What all agree upon is its silence. Even when it runs, the sound of its feet never reaches the ear. It is not stealth born of cunning, but of nature. Some say it vibrates the air in a way that cancels its own noise, the way a singer can shatter glass by matching its frequency. Others say it simply does not live in the same pace of time as we do, and that by the time we hear it, it has already gone. The wounds it leaves are not the work of hunger alone. There is something ceremonial in them, a precision that feels deliberate. The victims are drained but unbroken, left where they fell as though the act were meant to be seen, a message written in stillness. To look upon that stillness is to feel observed by something that does not sleep, something that has watched the beating of blood for so long that it knows exactly how to stop it. The old farmers whisper that this is why mirrors were hung in the pens, not to frighten the beast, but to remind the living they still have faces. Every reflection is proof of breath, and breath is what the Chupacabra listens for when it comes gliding through the dark. No one knows how long it feeds, whether it drinks to survive or simply to continue existing. Some say it stores what it takes in transparent veins that glow faintly when full, the only light it ever carries. Others claim it does not drink at all, that it draws vitality the way roots draw water, through touch alone. Whatever the truth, the result is always the same: a body perfectly still, as if sleep had arrived too deeply to wake from. And above it, the hum drifts away into the dark, patient and satisfied, waiting for another night to begin. The Chupacabra seems to favour places where the world goes quiet early. Lonely valleys, windless plains, and forests that seem to breathe slower than the rest of the earth. In Puerto Rico, they say it moves between the abandoned sugarcane fields, nesting where the roots have broken through the stone. In Mexico, hunters whisper of its burrows carved into the sides of dry hills, hidden beneath boulders that never shift. Farther north, in the empty ranchlands of Texas, it takes refuge in the drainage tunnels that snake beneath forgotten farms. Always close to livestock, yet never seen long enough to leave certainty behind. Even its presence feels conditional, as though it only half exists in our world until hunger calls it back into shape. On nights when it hunts, animals grow restless hours before the first sound. Dogs whine and paw at doors, cattle shuffle in tight circles. Then the stillness begins. Every insect, every frog, every night bird falls silent, as if the land itself holds its breath. The air grows thick, and for a moment, even the stars seem dimmer. That is when the Chupacabra moves. Its arrival is marked by nothing more than the hum, soft and deep, like wind caught in a hollow tree. The creature chooses its prey with precision, always one at a time, always isolated. It approaches from downwind, never allowing scent to betray it. There is no chase. The victim does not run, it simply collapses, drained before it understands what has touched it. The people who live closest to these places know not to look when the night goes quiet. They close their doors, they whisper prayers half remembered from grandparents, and they wait for the air to lighten again. Some hang branches of guava at the corners of their farms, others sprinkle salt or ash near the gates. They say these things draw the creature's gaze away, make it lose its path. But those who have lived longest know the truth. The Chupacabra cannot be warded off, only endured. When the silence ends, the survivors walk out to count the missing, and life continues until the next time the hum returns. Scholars have tried to explain it, to measure its habits like an animal, to chart its pattern by moon phase and rainfall. They have failed. The Chupacabra does not obey the weather, nor the seasons. It moves in rhythms that belong only to it, sometimes vanishing for months, sometimes striking night after night. It seems drawn to new fear, as though the telling of its name gives it strength. Wherever people whisper about it long enough, it soon arrives. Fear is its invitation, and the silence that follows is its acceptance. The strangest thing is how it leaves. No footprints, no trail, no heat on infrared cameras. Yet those who wake before dawn sometimes catch a glimmer far off in the dark, a pale green flicker near the trees, like a spark trapped in mist. A few say they have found perfect circles burned into the grass, as though something had hovered there, weightless, watching. The air above those marks feels colder, the scent faintly metallic, as if lightning had touched down for a heartbeat and left without fire. Scientists say there must be another explanation. The locals say explanations are just another way of refusing to believe what you already know. It is said that once you've heard the hum, you never forget its pitch. The body remembers. You hear it again in the low rumble of distant machinery, in the wind through narrow alleys, even in the pulse behind your own ears. Those who have encountered the Chupacabra live differently afterward. They speak softer at night. They keep lights near the windows and mirrors on the doors. Not because they think it will stop the creature, but because they need to see themselves, to prove they still cast a reflection in a world where something feeds on the living and leaves only perfect stillness behind. There are theories, endless, wild theories, about what the Chupacabra truly is. Some call it an undiscovered predator, the last descendant of a prehistoric species that learned to hide in shadow rather than die in sunlight. Others whisper that it was made, not born, a creature born of a failed experiment, the child of radiation and secrecy, slipped out of a laboratory and into the dark places between towns. A few, especially among the old and the deeply superstitious, believe it is something older than any of that, a hunger given form, a shape carved out of fear itself, fed by stories until it learned to feed on blood instead. In this telling, the Chupacabra is a mirror held to humanity's oldest terror, that there is something watching from the dark that remembers us not by name, but by heartbeat. When investigators have tried to trap it, they have always failed. Cameras lose focus, batteries drain without reason, and traps close on air. Once, a group of men in Texas claimed they wounded one. They followed the trail of dark stains into the scrubland and found them vanish halfway through, as if the ground had decided to stop remembering. What they did find, half buried under dust, was a set of prints shaped like claws and hands both at once, pressed so deep into the stone that the rock itself had cracked. The prints were warm, long after the sun had gone down. More than once, people have tried to bait the creature. They leave carcasses in the open, light fires nearby, wait with rifles and cameras. The fires go out, the rifles jam, the watchers fall asleep without meaning to, and when they wake, the carcass is gone, the circle of salt around it undisturbed. It does not take what is offered, it takes what belongs to the living. That is part of its nature. It does not scavenge, it claims. Its feeding is not just about blood, but possession, as if taking the vitality of one thing grants it a measure of place in our world. The more it feeds, the longer it stays before fading again into that hidden fold of reality where it rests. Some stories speak of its cry, though few claim to have heard it. A single, drawn-out wail that sounds almost human, rising and falling like wind through wire. They say it comes not before or after the hunt, but during, when it releases what it cannot keep, the sound of the soul escaping the body. Others say the hum itself is that cry, slowed down, stretched until it becomes the pulse of the night. No recording has ever caught it clearly. The microphones fill with static, as though the sound burns its way through electricity. Those who have heard it swear that it never truly leaves your ears. It hides there, waiting, until silence makes space for it again. And yet, despite everything, fascination endures. Tourists visit the towns where the killings began, buying shirts and keychains, smiling at murals that show the creature as cartoonish, almost friendly. Local guides tell stories in half-whispers, their voices trembling only slightly. At night, the same guides drive home past the same empty fields, eyes fixed on the road, windows rolled tight. The legend has become livelihood, and fear, when named often enough, begins to wear a familiar face. But deep down, everyone knows that legends live because they are never truly caught. They wait where the lights do not reach, patient and certain that one day someone will look too long into the dark again, and the hum will return steady and cold to remind them that some stories were never meant to end. For centuries, stories of the Chupacabra have carried one strange consistency. It never kills out of anger. There is no cruelty in what it does, no rage, no pleasure. It feeds with the detachment of nature as a tide erases footprints. Witnesses say that even when it strikes, there is no sound of struggle, only a deep quiet, as if the world pauses to allow the act to complete itself. That calm, that dreadful peace, is what unnerves people the most. It is not the frenzy of a beast, but the precision of something that knows exactly what it needs and how to take it. In that way, the Chupacabra is not a monster in the traditional sense. It is a reminder that hunger itself can be perfect. There are theories about its weaknesses, though none proven. Some claim it cannot cross running water, that the flow distorts the pulse it hunts by. Others say fire confuses it, the flickering light disrupting whatever sense guides it in the dark. There are those who insist that mirrors drive it away, because it cannot bear to see the thing it becomes while feeding. But those same people also admit that no one has ever tested such things, and lived to confirm them. The truth, perhaps, is simpler. It has no true weakness, only disinterest. When it has fed enough, it fades back into shadow, leaving us to invent new defences to make ourselves feel safe. It is said that the Chupacabra moves with the moon, not in phase, but in mood. When the moon is thin and sharp, the creature grows restless, its hum more frequent. When the moon is full and soft, it sleeps somewhere beneath the earth, curled around the echoes of its own heartbeat. This, at least, gives hope to those who live in its path. They watch the sky not for rain or stars, but for the shape of that pale light, counting the nights until peace might return. In a world that has mapped nearly everything, it is strange to think that something like this still breathes beyond the reach of science and steel. And yet, maybe that is why the legend refuses to die, because deep down, we need something that reminds us the dark is not empty. In every generation, the creature is reborn in rumour and retold in new shapes. A reptile with wings, a shadow on 2 legs, a phantom machine built to drain blood and vanish. Each version fits the fear of its age, adapting as easily as we change our stories. That adaptability is its immortality. Even if it were to vanish entirely, the next whisper of fear, the next unexplained stillness, would call it back. It lives where imagination meets dread, right on the border of belief. The hum is the proof of that border. Once you hear it, you understand that the world is wider than you thought, and that some hungers never end. So if you find yourself somewhere far from light, and the night begins to sound too quiet, listen carefully. If you feel the pressure behind your eyes, the faint vibration in your ribs, do not call out. Do not move. The Chupacabra does not hunt those who do not acknowledge it. Hold your breath, wait until the hum fades, and when morning comes, if you wake to silence, count yourself lucky. For something passed by in the night, something that could have chosen you, but didn't. That mercy, however small, is the only defence we have against the creatures born of our own fear. And somewhere, out there in the dark, the Chupacabra waits again for the world to forget it ever existed.